Hey there, and welcome to the Love Naturally Spiritual Lessons. This is a new series that I'm extending here in my channel, and I'm really excited about it. This particular series here is all about your spiritual protection. So we are going to be doing part 1 of spiritual protection. And if you're really interested in learning how to fortify your own sense of spiritual energy, to fortify your own defense, this is going to be for you. So I'm Priestess Ishtah. Let's dive in. Now, let's assess if this module is actually for you. As I mentioned, this is going to be a part 1 of a multi-series, and this is particularly focusing on your spiritual energy. So I want to know if you are interested in learning more about your spiritual protection by giving you this definition. Spiritual protection is what you can consider a way for you to protect your psychic energy and your overall energy against psychic attacks. So that energy resides in what we like to call an auric field, or your aura, your spirit. And a lot of times we can encounter unseen forces. Sometimes those forces can be seen when you have a person in front of you that is just in totally bad vibes, you feel me? So when we encounter those things, we are going to feel that in our spiritual bodies just as much as we feel it in our emotions and physical. So if this is something that you're interested in learning on how to protect, this is going to be for you. And let's face it, everybody needs spiritual protection. What I'm going to be focusing on is how you can protect yourself. Now, can you use these techniques as we go through this entire module together? On others, you can, but I'm not here to teach you how to heal others. That is their responsibility, the same way it is your responsibility to heal you, and it is mine to heal me. We can recruit help, but allow them to come to you for that help before you impose your will on others. All right, so some suggested prerequisites, meaning what I want you to know going into this. I would love for you to have a basic level of spiritual knowledge. So this includes having some experience, if not personal, at least some understanding of crystals. And when I say crystals, that means like stones and metaphysical crystals, okay? Also visualizations. When I say a visualization, I'm going to be referring to you being able to use your imagination for exercises that I will recommend, as well as knowing what energy manipulation is, just something like Reiki, or believe it or not, something like prayer. Prayer can absolutely call forth energy to make something happen, to shift the room or shift the energy around a particular situation or circumstance. So if you have those basic foundational knowledge, then this is going to be an easier ride for you. If you don't, still join in, but you may want to pace yourself and take some notes, and I will have personal contacts for all of you in case you want to reach out with any personal questions. Let's dive in. Okay, so I do want to just say a little bit more on what you're going to learn in depth. This is not going to be covering spiritual protection, and yes, those are real birds. This is not, so somebody definitely needs this message, because whenever the birds come through like that, those are the angels talking, the faux show. But this is not going to be covering protection for the home. Now, I do cover how to protect your home in my free podcast, so I'll leave that information in the description, and check me out there. I think you're going to like it. It has a similar flow and style, but this is going to be giving you the information on how to give spiritual protection over the self. And I'm going to approach this with the divine feminine trinity aspect in mind. I'm going to give you the best times of days that you should be protecting yourself, and we'll also look at the esoteric meaning. So we're setting the foundation on understanding what spiritual protection is from a metaphysical sense with the divine feminine approach. This does not mean that we are ruling out divine masculine energy. It also does not mean that if you identify as a divine masculine or male, that this is not for you. We are talking about you commanding energy that you have access to from and as your birthright. Okay, and I also have a protection prayer that is totally suggested, but it will be very powerful. I think you'll like it. It can definitely shift the energy in the room, like we were saying before when we were talking about prayers. So some class requirements. You will want to have a way to take personal notes. I also want you to be respectful in your conduct. I'm gonna keep it real. I speak very professionally. I have over 15 years of learning and development training and expertise. I've worked with adults for many years in helping them to understand different systems. If you hear any snoring in the background, that's my dog. Okay. So one thing that I found is the most consistent rule to have is respect. All right. It is a luxury for you to be here. This is a free service. So it's a luxury for you to be here, but it's also a luxury for me to have you here. So if you have any opposing thoughts or opinions, save it for yourself. Again, use that as inspiration. Again, this is my platform, so I want you to use that as inspiration to create your own platform and to put out knowledge there. All right. And if you do have some questions, again, please reach out to me, or you can leave questions in the comments. Let's continue. So I hope you have that way to take notes, because we are ready to start. We are kicking off this lesson with understanding when to protect yourself, right? Because like I said, this spiritual protection is going to be in a multi-series, and there will be a lot of other topics that I'm going to cover. But I really wanted to break this spiritual protection down. And our first foundation needs to be on understanding, well, when the hell do I even protect myself? By now, you should know what spiritual protection is. Now, since you know what spiritual protection is, I'm going to show you when we should be fortifying that spiritual protection. Now, this doesn't mean that you're learning the techniques right away. We're just going to set down the foundation on when you need to fortify that protection. So, the first part of the day where I want you to consider your protection rituals or habits or techniques or approaches, however you want to call it, activities, right? It's going to be in the morning. When you first wake up in the morning, it's going to be, honestly, one of the most effective ways for you to protect yourself, because it sets the tone for the day. The second part of spiritual protection, or the second part of the day, where I would like to invite you to enforce or reinforce your spiritual protection. If you've said it during the morning, the evening would be reinforcement, right? Is going to be in the evening, as just stated. The evening is that midpoint of the day. Notice that I skipped past the afternoon. Now, if your evening starts at 4, if your evening starts at 3, that's early evening, but so be it. But I'm really talking about that late afternoon, evening time of day, okay? Like just before dinner. And then if you are following my flow here, you'll probably notice I'm going with a pattern, and we're looking at the night here, where we're reinforcing that protection. But I also look at the night time as I am setting up another wall of protection, because we forget that every time we go to sleep, we don't know where the fuck we go. We go off into this dreamland and this dream world, and a lot of science is not clear on what the brain does, what dreams are, and how the brain operates on this imaginatory or imagination world, which we call the dream world. So I always suggest that it's very important for us to protect ourselves before bed. And my grandmother growing up always taught us to say our prayers, okay? So this is something that you may already do naturally. Now, what does all of this mean? Because I did tell you that we're going to look at this from the divine feminine approach. So what does all of this mean? How does this connect to a divine feminine aspect? This is where you're going to get your pens and papers out, friends. First off, the morning. The morning represents the maid. Now, when you look at the divine feminine and the Holy Trinity approach, and the Holy Trinity appears differently across cultures. Most traditional, if you're looking at the Western world, in the Christian aspect, the Holy Trinity comes up as the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, or the Holy Ghost. But in this aspect, even predating Christianity, the Holy Trinity was represented and is often still represented, and often masked, I should say. Not often still, but it is still represented and often masked as the maid, which is represented here by the morning. The evening is going to be the maiden. Very good, those of you who are following my flow. And if we're looking at the maid and the maiden, what do you think the nighttime will fall into? That is right. The nighttime is going to fall into the crone. So when you have the trinities or the divine feminine influence in your spiritual protection, the maid, the maiden, and the crone is going to be a outline that we are going to use to influence the rituals, the habits, and the techniques, the metaphysical techniques that you're going to do at these given times of day. So technically speaking, what does this mean? This means that in the morning, you're going to channel that maid. You're going to channel that maiden in the evening, and in the nighttime, you're going to channel the crone. But let's put this into even clearer terms. The morning maid represents what? The morning maid is the freshest. It's the virgin. In symbolism and in mythology, the maid is the virgin. The maid is purity. The maid is the first. It is clean. It is untouched. It is sacred. Okay, that is what the maid represents, and it's also representing and indicative of our descent into the world as wet behind the ears, I'm hearing, as fresh, young, unknowledged beings. And that disadvantage of having knowledge does work, because I'm hearing and I'm seeing, for those of you that understand tarot, the Fool card in the deck. And those of you that don't understand tarot, the Fool card represents new beginnings, fresh starts, and a carefree approach. And there's something about serendipity, always guiding the steps and not having fears, okay? So that is what the maid represents. And channeling that energy in your morning, if we had to clean it up and put it into a fewer words, would be strength, rebirth, and power. When we look at the evening maiden, we are looking at the mother. The maiden is the mother aspect. It is the matured woman, not fully matured in her elderly state, but it is the woman who is more self-assured. She's not so wet behind the ears anymore. She kind of knows what's up. She's hip to game. She peep game. She owns the game, because she is the game. The mother is the one who, it's funny, I was watching a tarot reader. Her name is Adi Rose, and she was doing a reading, and she just stopped in the middle of her reading, and not abruptly, just almost like you would have thought that the camera had glitched, and she was looking around, darting her eyes around. I'm like, what is she doing? Is she all right? But she was listening to what her children were doing. And she was still present in the reading, still had her cards in her hand with the tarot deck, but she was listening to what her children were doing. And she even said, my bad, I was listening to what my kids were doing, because I heard this. And I said, wow, like that's like mom on, that's like real momming right there. That's like momming right there. You're being able to be two places at once to make sure everything is okay. So the maiden is the one energy where it's good to start to collect yourself, to nurture yourself, because that's what the mother's energy is there for. Now, we're not going into what personal relationships are with their mother. We're talking about the archetypal energy of what a mother or maiden energy represents. And also, it represents the structure, okay? Happy wife, happy life. The mom, I feel that a mother who runs a good home is the glue, keeps everything together. The father does as well. We're not taking away from what the male energy contributes, but there's something about that feminine presence in a home with the meals and mending the ill. It's something that keeps it all running and all together, okay? And then we're going to close this with looking at the crone energy. That's right, the night crone. For some reason, the crone energy is like my favorite energy. This is where you step into that grand wizard energy, okay? When we are in our elderly state, when we are in our oldest, we are at our prime, believe it or not. Even though the physical may not be able to match and meet it, we are in our most prime as far as our wisdom and our knowledge, if we allow ourselves to use it, okay? And if there are no, of course, mental issues like Alzheimer's or dementia. So this, aside from physicality, on a metaphysical sense, the crone represents your reinforcement and defense, and I'll explain why. The reason why I've listed here the Grand Wizard for the crone energy is because of the knowledge and wisdom that comes with the crone. The crone, when we look at the word wizard literally means wise one. It means sage, because if you break down the word wiz, looking at the etymology of the word wizard, the word wiz means wise one, sage, and shaman. And the word ard means to do rigorously. So to have wisdom rigorously, to be a sage rigorously. So this is where you are stepping into that sage and shaman abilities, because guess what the crone does? The crone is the gatekeeper into your realm of sleep. This is the last stage and step before you go into your submission of sleep, because we surrender ourselves into sleep. It is, and I don't mean to scare anyone with this statement, but it's how we practice death. Okay, sleep is a dance with death, because you return to your body and everything is still functioning as you do. But what is making all of that run? We know the heart, we know the brain. So having that reinforcement energy before you go into that submission, into that realm of the unknown, that dream realm, having up a defense is going to be important when we are channeling that crone energy. So I want you to consider at this point, what type of rituals can you initiate now that you have these descriptions, now that you understand a little bit more on what the morning energy represents, what the evening energy represents, and what the nightly energy represents. Maid and crone, maid and crone, maid and crone. What type of rituals of protection can you do and institute for your spiritual energy? Let's keep going. You're going to use this creative mental exercise to support that brainstorm activity that we just gave you. So this creative mental exercise is going to go a little bit like this. What I want you to do is to create a column or create a list that has 3 different columns. Your list is going to have in its first column titled as the morning maid. Your second column is going to be titled the evening maiden. And then your third column, I want you to title it as the night crone. So let's repeat that back. You're creating a list, and that list, 3 columns. First column, title morning maid. Second column, title evening maiden. Third column, title night crone. Now under each of these columns, what I want you to do is to devise 3. That's right, no more, no less. Just 3 separate protection strategies or rituals, methods, habits, whatever you want to call them, okay? But 3 protective spiritual protection strategies. And you're going to do this using the influence from the descriptions that I provided to you for each of the goddesses. Now, this is going to be based on that time of day. And now I'm saying goddess as the maiden, the maid, and the crone, or the maid, maiden, and crone. Each is a divine feminine aspect. Each is the archetype energy of a different divine goddess, okay? So be creative, use your intuition. And I do want to set you up with a few examples in case you're feeling a little stumped. The first example I want to give you is for the morning maid. So we know that the morning maid represents our strength, our rebirth energy, correct? Right. So what is something that I would recommend that you can include on your list is maybe a movement activity, whatever you like. This can be somatic movement. This could be dance. This could be actual exercise. It could be yoga. And another activity I would recommend under the morning maid is gratitude, expressing verbal gratitude aloud. And when I say aloud, it doesn't mean yelling it, unless if that's what you're feeling called to do that, baby. But just being able to express your gratitude. Now, when it comes to the evening maiden, I would recommend using meditation or a emotional check-in. You can use the aid of a worksheet or just ask yourself, taking 5 minutes and stepping away to recollect yourself, because we know that maiden is the nurturer. She's the collector, making sure everything is in order and good. And then when we look at the night crone, we know that that is our last step before we descend back into sleep, depending on your schedule, right? So I would recommend doing a return to sender. A return to sender is just returning energy out from you. You can think it, you can say it, you can visualize it with your imagination, just energy that's not yours, that is just unclean and impure and negative and evil, directed back to the person that has sent it to you with love. You can also choose to clear yourself, clearing your energy at this time right before you go to sleep. And journaling does help, as we know that the wisdom of your day might want to be divulged in a nice diary, so that way you can reflect in the future. Okay, so those are just some examples that you can use for your rituals that you are creating, my friends. I want you to take up to 9 minutes to complete this exercise. And yes, time yourself, because if you spend too much time on this, it will become too complex. Again, I'm going to take you on a full journey on spiritual protection, and this will be a slow burn and a slow build to a beautiful empire that we will create together. So pause the video here and take 9 minutes to complete your activity. All right, so at this point, you should be all done with your activity, right? I hope you took the full 9 minutes. And if you took a little longer, so be it. Now, what I want for us to do is to take a look and listen to this spiritual prayer. You can read it along with me, or you can just sit and close your eyes and allow me to read it to you. This is a suggested prayer that you can use as a template for creating your own prayers of protection, or you can use this very exact one. Ashe to the morning maid, sister of strength, rebirth, and power. Ashe to the evening maiden, our grand nurturer and collector. Ashe to the night crone, the grand wizard of the matrix, my protective reinforcement. So my friend, class is adjourned. You have made it to the end of this course, of this module. We will have more to come. Our next class is going to take you on part 2 of spiritual protection. This is where I'm going to take you into the actual metaphysical techniques that I use. So keep the notes from this class and this module, because you're going to expand upon those notes as we continue our journey together. Next class, you're definitely going to want to be there, because I'm going to be giving you my personal system of self-defense that I use whenever I sense spiritual attack coming towards me. And I'm even going to include a little tip on how you can sense spiritual attacks coming towards you as well. And also, I'm going to be teaching you protection techniques that do not, can I repeat it for the people in the back? That do not require tools. So this is something that you can use all within yourself. You don't have to buy a bunch of things. You don't have to go out and make a list on Amazon shopping cart or whatever you're using, Etsy, whoever out there. As a retailer, you don't have to do that. These are going to be tools that you have right within yourself. So you're going to want to see that. I'm telling you, you're not going to want to miss it. If you want to learn more from me, if you are wanting more from me, I am offering readings. I'm offering coaching services. I also offer Reiki clearings and healings for yourself and your home, depending on where you are located. So let's get in touch when you're ready for upping your spiritual energy. And when you're ready for me, I'm ready for you. But until next time, I'll see you at the next lesson. Love Naturally is out, baby.